There's a feeling that we all are familiar with, and it's the feeling of being broken inside. Every human being has at one point felt brokenness deep inside him. And this is something that you feel deep in your soul. And it's so difficult for you to communicate it with people around you because it's almost like no one can understand how you feel deep inside. But I'm here to let you know that there's not a single human being in this world that would not at some point have that feeling inside. In fact, the only person that walked this planet that didn't feel that is the one that walked on the earth without sin in him. The one who's now seated at the right hand of God, interceding on our behalf, is the only one that walked through earth without any form of brokenness. And that brokenness that you feel inside sometimes makes you want to secretly give up. Have you ever embarked on something, try to set out on a journey, or maybe start a project, or maybe you even want to work on your dreams and do something meaningful with your life, and you're so pumped up, you're so energized, and you want to just do something to make a difference in the world, something to push through, something to make the world a better place, something to make you feel like I have accomplished my purpose, and you want to do this thing. But then at some point, because your project was still at its infancy level, and you're not seeing the results, you're not seeing things happening, and you've been doing this over and over and over again, and you're not seeing the difference that you want to see. You're not seeing all the seeds that you're planting. You're not seeing the fruits of them. You're not reaping the reward. You're not seeing any. In fact, you're not seeing a single sign of even the slightest form of breakthrough. And you think now at some point that, you know what, since no one knows about it, I might as well just pack things up and just, secretly give up. Because it's so easy, because then you will think, well, no one knows about it. No one is going to judge me. No one cares about it, at some point, because that's why you're not seeing any results. And deep down, you're like, let me just pack things up. I'm not seeing anything. Let me just, it's over. It's over. Let me just move on because this isn't working. Let me just go try out something else. And this is the point of today's message unto someone. Now, this message might not be for everyone, but it's for someone that knows deep inside them. Okay, someone that knows deep inside him or her that he was designed for a greater purpose. That he or she is designed for something bigger than what they are feeling right now. Something bigger than what they are even envisioning right now. Something bigger than what all the facts of their life is saying. And that leads us to the Bible text for today. I want to point something out, and I need you all to stay with me because there is something that I need to point out for that one person that's looking at me right now, that's looking through the camera. Because like I said, everyone has felt that brokenness, and that feeling makes you want to give up. But you know that there's a bigger purpose. And I want to show you something in the Bible. So let's go into the book of Genesis from chapter 13 up until chapter 16. This is where God was telling Abraham about his future descendants, and is prophesying unto him, and is telling him he would lead his future descendant to the promised land. But they will have to go through something, and that's what I want us to study right now. So Genesis chapter 15 from verse 13 to 16. Then he said to Abraham, Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. 14. And also the nation whom they serve, I will judge. Afterwards, they shall come out with great possession. 15. Now, as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at good old age. 16. But in the fourth generation, they shall return here. For the iniquities of the Amorite is not yet complete. So this is God telling Abraham that he would lead his people to the promised land. Now, this is where things are getting heated up, okay? If you're familiar with the Bible, in the book of Exodus, we were introduced to the prophet Moses. Now, Moses is a prophet from the tribe of Levi, who God has ordained 3-4 generations before he was born to deliver the people of Israel from the bondage of Egyptian slavery. Okay, now this is what we know, the story of Moses very well. And if you're not familiar with the story of Moses, I would just advise you to go to one of the live sessions Bible study that we've been having in the book of Exodus, and you will get familiar with the story of Moses. So before Moses was born, God had prophesied that the Egyptian would enslave the Israelite for 400 years, and then he would deliver the Israelite from the bondage of Egypt. And who is God going to use? God is going to use Moses to deliver the Israelite from the bondage of Egypt. God is going to use Moses to deliver the Israelites from slavery, to lead them into redemption, to lead them to their promised land. Now, who is Moses? Before Moses was born, because God already promised Abraham that his descendants will go to a foreign land where they will become strangers, and the strangers would enslave them, because God has made promises unto them again. Once again, why did the foreigner enslave the Israelite? Because God said, you will go to a strange land and you will be fruitful and you will multiply. And when the Egyptians saw that they were expanding and they were becoming more and more numerous, they thought, oh, if we go to war with those people, they would win us in the war, so let us enslave them. So God's blessing is what made them enslaved. And all of this is working so that God can fulfill his prophecy through one man. So when Moses was going to be born, the Egyptian, because they knew that someone would deliver, they also knew about the prophecy that someone would deliver the Israelites from their from them being enslaved by the Egyptian. The Pharaoh made an ordinance. He said to kill every first male son, to kill every male son that will be given birth to. And so that at the end of the day, once all the male children are wiped out, the females easily, when they get married to Egyptians, where the child that they give birth to really doesn't matter anymore, because the moment the woman gets married to Egyptian, the child that they give birth to becomes an Egyptian. So for Moses to come to existence, God ordained, or God directed his dad, a Levi, and Levites are the priests before God made them officially priests. So that's the tribe of the priest. So his dad, being a priest, got married to his mom, and then they gave birth to Moses in the era when they were ordaining all male childs to be killed. And then God had to preserve Moses. God gave his mom the initiative. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers, by the way, because this is the amount of risk that our mothers take to ensure that we come out right, to ensure that we are safe, to ensure that we don't get killed by the oppressors. So shout out to all the mothers in the world. Shout out to all the good mothers in the world. Shout out to all the mothers that will do everything to protect us, their children. So Moses' mother created a small basket, which was in the form of a small ark, and puts baby Moses in it. And baby Moses floated on the river Nile. And then the Pharaoh's daughter, saw the baby. She knew instinctively that this baby is a Hebrew baby. And by virtue of the Spirit of God, she knew that they were trying to preserve this baby's life. But because baby Moses was so beautiful and the hand of God was on Moses, instead of saying, oh, Dad, this is one of the Hebrew children, kill him, they're trying to preserve him, she said, I'm going to protect this baby. Find me a Hebrew woman to take care of this baby for me. And then Moses' sister that was in the river to observing everything popped out of nowhere and said, I can find you an Hebrew woman to help you take care of this baby. So at the end of the day, Moses' mother was the one who eventually raised Moses. So Moses became the adopted child in the Egyptian palace. So when Moses became a bit older, Moses understands that I am not one of those people. He was feeling the difference, and he knows that this is not who I am. I am a Hebrew. Even though I was raised in the Egyptian palace, I am still an Hebrew. And so when he goes out to see where people are working, he sees how his people have been treated, and he sees how the Egyptians have been treated. He sees the oppression on one hand, and he sees people benefiting from the oppression of those people on the other hand. And Moses was drawn towards his people. He wants to help his people. He wants to do everything. He wants to make sure his people, their voices are heard. They're not being beaten. They're not being oppressed. And so what did Moses do? Moses decided to take law and so what did Moses do? Moses decided to take matters into his own hands. And there was this point in time, he saw one of the Egyptian taskmaster flogging an Israelite for not doing what he was supposed to do. And Moses stepped in and what? He took law into his own hand. He took matters into his own hand, and he killed the Egyptian taskmaster. And this is something that happens when we want to do something. Even though we know that this is oppression, we're trying to do what is right. We're trying to fix things our own way. And then we step into things. And when you step into things, what do you realize? Realize that even though you have the right intention, you end up messing things up furthermore because that wasn't the right timing. And so if you're creating something, you're trying to do something, you have it in mind, and you're not seeing the result that you want, and now you're doing everything just to get things right, just to make things work, just to get this done fast. And this is a struggle that we have in today's culture. Everyone wants to get things done real quick. Everyone is losing patience. Everyone wants things to happen like right now. Everyone wants this to happen today. Everyone wants to become a millionaire in 3 days. Everyone wants to build a business in 7 days. Everyone wants to do things through the shortcut. They want the best reward. They want the outstanding, long-lasting reward, but they want to put in the minimum effort. And that's what we saw here. Moses wanted to deliver his people, but then he stepped in. And he stepped in by killing one Egyptian taskmaster that was oppressing the Israelites. And what happened? He thought that happened in secret, but then the news had traveled around. So when he was trying, the next day he went out to talk to his people, and then he saw 2 Israelites fighting. You know how we see people fighting, and then when you see 2 people that are being oppressed, for example, you see like people of color fighting amongst each other, and then you're like, oh wow, why are you guys fighting? You guys are the same. And what did those people tell Moses? They said, what do you mean? Who made you a judge over Israel? Or are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian yesterday? And that was when Moses realized that what he thought he did in secret was actually in open. And now he knows that if the Israelite people knows about this, then the Egyptian people already knows about it. And what's that? The penalty for that will be death. So Moses took heel and he had to run into the wilderness. And that's where his journey begins, the wilderness moment. His broken moment. He was broken and he had to move to the wilderness. This shows that even if you are living and you're doing things and everything is right with you and you're bubbling and you think you're being blessed, before God will use you, sometimes God would have to break you down completely and humble you completely and just mold you and reshape you and do things and just shake you up, just for you to know that you're not doing this by your own self. You're doing it out of brokenness. Out of brokenness. And like I said, every single one of us at some point have felt it. But I'm talking to that one person that's feeling it deep inside. That's feeling like, you know what, maybe I should just pack things up. Maybe it's just time for me to just give up. Maybe I'm not going to see any result. Maybe I'm not going to be the one to help these people out. But I want y'all to stick with me through the story of Moses, because the story of Moses is a very prominent story in the Bible. Moses became the greatest prophet of the Old Testament. But he didn't become the greatest prophet of the Old Testament without having to pass through his broken moment, without having to pass through his wilderness moment. So now Moses is in the wilderness. Moses is in the wilderness. And God so good, God ordained a step. He met a woman there who became his wife, Sephora. And the father of his wife adopted him into his house. And good thing is the father of his wife is a priest. So he was able to teach Moses in priestly ways. Moses became a shepherd and was shepherding sheep in the wilderness until God called him. Now, the main thing I want us to remember is that Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness. Moses took off to the wilderness at age 40. And then he spent another 40 years in the wilderness. Now, think about this. While he was in the wilderness, he knew that his people were still being oppressed. That's another 40 years that God took to prepare him. That's another 40 years that the people of Israel will have to spend in slavery. However, was that journey worth it? Yes, it was. Now, keep in mind, this prophecy about Moses came 3-4 generations before he was even born. All right, I'm talking to someone who is thinking, oh, well, I'm in my wilderness moment, but there's a prophecy about your life that has happened 3, 4, 5 generations before you were born. And God is taking you through all these broken moments, all this wilderness moment, all these trials and tribulation moments, so that he can shape you and mold you and use you to do great and mighty things in the life of his people, to deliver his people out of bondage, to deliver his people out of the hands of their oppressors. And so Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, and he heard the voice of God. God called him at age 80. Do you hear the voice of God calling you while you're doing things? Are you like just working and just maybe you're lifting up boxes and all of a sudden you heard your name, like Samuel? Or are you just working at a specific job and you think you're doing this, but somehow you know that this wasn't even what I'm supposed to be doing? And then all of a sudden you heard your name or something just happened and you just know that this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. That happens. God can call you from the thicket of the fire and call you into assignment. And every single thing that you've been trying to do that's not been working, all of a sudden they all begin to work, because at that point you are ready to start fulfilling God's assignment, to start doing what God wants you to do, to start fulfilling your purpose in God. So God called Moses. God called Moses. Even though his destiny has been ordained before he was born, God called him to lead his people out of bondage into inheritance. What's that thing in your life that you've been trying to fix by yourself? You've been trying to fix it on your own. You've been trying to make it happen on your own. And it's not working. And you sunk into your moment of wilderness thinking, I might as well just secretly give up because no one cares. The first thing I want you to know that you are not alone. This is a common feeling. This is a feeling that great people always have deep inside them. There is no great human being that you've read about that at some point of their life they didn't feel like secretly giving up. Especially when there is no applause, when there is no encouragement, when there's no one to tell you, oh, you've done something that really matters. In fact, when you've done something that matters, like Moses did to help the Israelites, and what did he get? He got criticized by his own people. He got pushed away by the people that he was trying to save. And if we keep reading the story of Moses, we notice that they kept criticizing him even after delivering them from bondage. So, who are you to secretly give up? Who are you to think this might not work? Who are you to think, I don't think I'm worthy of doing this? Because imagine if Moses had given up. Imagine if Moses had said, I'm not going to do this. Imagine if Moses had thought about his people pushing him away and criticizing him and say something like, well, they might also just keep being enslaved. Imagine if Moses had secretly gave up in the wilderness and died in the wilderness and decided not to go back to talk to Pharaoh, to tell Pharaoh that the Lord God has sent me to tell you to let my people go. Imagine if Moses had given up. Imagine we would not have the Bible today. He ended up writing the first 5 chapters of the Bible. We won't have the story of Joshua. We won't have the Israelite going to the promised land. We won't have no David. We won't even have no Jesus at some point. All because one man decided not to give up. So this message is for someone out there. First, I want you to know that your story has been predetermined generations before you were born. Your story has been written generations before you were born. And every single thing that you're going through, every single wilderness moment, every single broken moment, every single thing that you've been trying to do that's not working, it's all part of the journey. They've all been predetermined from the beginning of time. And the only thing that you need to do is to hold on, keep the faith, and stay the course. Because there is a whole generation of people waiting for you to answer the calling of God upon your life. Moses ended up delivering close to 2 million people out of the bondage of Egypt and leading them close to the promised land. He ends up delivering them from bondage by the help of God, out of the clutches of their oppressor. Close to 2 million people. Imagine if he had given up. Like the first time he had to move to the wilderness, it took them another 40 years to stay in oppression. Now imagine if he had died in the wilderness, if he had completely given up, if he had said to himself, you know what, if I secretly give up right now, no one will know. But imagine the amount of the generation of people that will suffer if he had given up. And that's why I'm sharing this with that one person out there. I don't know who you are, but I believe the host of heaven knows who you are. And I believe that you yourself, you know who you are. And every single thing that you're going through right now is all part of the process. It's all part of the journey that God has predetermined for you. And even though you're doing things right now, even though you're walking right now, even though you're putting things in place right now, even though you're trying to make things work right now, and there is no form of encouragement, there is no form of applause, there is no one clapping for you, there's no one telling you, oh, you've done something that really matters. Instead, you're getting more and more criticized. You're getting more discouragement. I want you to know that it's only for a moment. And everything that you're going through right now, that you're not seeing any results, it's all but for a moment. Because the reward that comes from you not giving up, the reward that comes from you answering your call, is not just the fulfillment of your purpose, but something that will help generations of people, all because that one person, all because you decide not to give up. So that's my message for you. I don't know who you are once again, but it's just something I've been feeling in my spirit. And I just want to share that message with you, that no matter what it is that you're going through right now, keep the faith, stay the course, and never give up. And at the end of the journey, the whole world will rejoice and be thankful unto God that one person did not give up.